Hey guys, welcome to This is Sporta, the podcast that brings you sports. I'm your host, David. If you follow that link right down there, that'll take you to all my links that we have, the YouTube, my Twitter, my Instagram, the Beard Struggle, as well as Raise Energy and other things that I am an ambassador for. And you can use discounts that are at that website to get deals. So once again, that link right there, boop, scrolling. Use that. Hit the links if you like the beard, keep it fresh. There's the Beard Struggle link. There's Raise Energy. And of course, my YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. Go like, subscribe, reply, leave comments for me. As you can tell, I am in a car. This is another recorded edition of This is Sporta, so this will not be live. It is currently Thursday night at about 7:55 p.m. I am getting ready to go in and play hockey a little bit later, and between work and hockey and live shows are getting harder and harder to do, especially with holiday season and being in retail. It's tough. So let's start off right away with the NFL. Big thing this week with the NFL was just really came out. Antonio Brown is under scrutiny for a fake COVID-19 vaccination card that was leaked by his former chef. Now, the story is Antonio Brown's girlfriend reached out to the chef and offered $500 to get a fake card because Antonio Brown had hesitancy about the vaccine and its effects. And he wasn't able to obtain one for Antonio Brown. And eventually, Antonio Brown got one and bragged to the chef that he got it. And because he didn't pay the chef $10,000 that he was owed for former services, he let this leak and told the media that it was a fake card. Now, the Buccaneers organization has come out. They have confirmed legitimacy of the card, saying that their organization went through all players' vaccination cards and they decided there were no alterations, nothing illegal or wrong with it. So it'll be interesting to see where the NFL takes this and what this means for Antonio Brown. It doesn't mean too much for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Obviously, AB has a very minimal role there in terms of what he does. He does add depth, and going into the playoffs where injuries could be a concern, AB could be useful. Other than that, I don't see this spiraling or snowballing into something bigger. This is hot off the heels of the whole Aaron Rodgers controversy about being immunized and not being vaccinated. It's good to see the NFL kind of taking this stuff seriously. I do expect an investigation, but I do expect Antonio Brown to be cleared. If not, then the Buccaneers organization does have to step up and take responsibility, as does Antonio Brown, and hopefully they get hit with a big fine if that is the case. Faking vaccination is not something I think anyone should do. I think it's stupid. I think it's stupid that you have to be showing your vaccination card and stuff like that. I'm not a vaccine passport guy. I think to each his own. But I get why they do it. They are a business. They are an enterprise. They do want to protect their assets. So I'm okay with that because they are technically a privatized business. Other than that, nothing huge on the NFL front. My picks last week went 1-5. Horrible week. I'm going to be like the Cowboys against the Broncos. I'm going to flush that as a bad game. Hopefully I come back this week and play the Falcons and whoop their ass. So I'm 18-15 on the year due to the bad week last week. But I'm still above 500. I am in the black, as they say. And so I've made picks this week going in, and it does not include tonight's game of the Patriots and whoever they're playing, although I did want to pick the Patriots. But because I'm recording this now and I know the score, it wouldn't be fair to put up. Straight up, I'm going with the Los Angeles Chargers over the Pittsburgh Steelers. Reason being is it seems as Ben Roethlisberger will be out and Mason Rudolph will be that quarterback. And he is not that guy. He's been proven he is not that guy. And the Steelers are in shambles without Ben Roethlisberger on offense, as seen by last week against the Lions, ending in a tie. Game 2 will be the Titans over the Texans. I think this is a give me. Texans just aren't good. Titans are playing really well. Now, this could be a trap game. This absolutely could. It would not surprise me if the Texans won, but I don't expect them to. Ergo, Titans. And game 3, I'm taking the Eagles over the New Orleans Saints. Eagles have been playing really good ball right now. Their running game is really good. Jalen Hurts throwing the ball hasn't been bad. And the Saints right now are quarterbackless. They really don't have anyone. Jameis Winston is injured. Taysom Hill isn't a quarterback. He's a gadget guy. And then they got Trevor Siemian as their backup. I don't see it. I think Alvin Kamara may be out now. So unless the Saints defense plans on winning this game, I think the Eagles win straight up. So Chargers, Titans, Eagles. Against the spread, there were a few games here I really didn't like. I didn't like this week against the spread, but I took games just to take games. Game 1, and this is the one I do like, the Packers 1.5 against the Vikings. So Packers have to win by 2 points. I think they will. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to be out to destroy the league because of what has happened with his COVID issue. I think he's out for blood and vengeance. I expect them to beat the Vikings. Not a big deal. The other game, the Colts versus the Bills. I'm taking the Colts at 7.5, meaning they can lose by 7, and they can lose by a touchdown. Colts have been playing really well. Carson Wentz has been playing okay. The Bills have been up and down the past couple games. I think they can hold them to 7, if not get a backdoor cover. Maybe they're down 13. They score a touchdown at the end of the game. They cover the 7.5. I'm not too confident on that one, but I think they can. The other game is the Seahawks +3 against the Cardinals. Kyler Murray is questionable. I think Russell Wilson has a lot to prove off of last week's shit show against the Packers, being held to 0 points. And I think that doesn't sit well with Russell Wilson, nor does it sit well with this Seahawks organization, seeing as how they haven't been shut out since 2012 before Russell Wilson got there. Russell has not been shut out in his career. That was his first time. I think he wants to avenge that loss, and I think he wants to do it against the team that a lot of people consider the number 1 team in the league right now, in the Arizona Cardinals. Sorry, someone's distracting me right now. So the big games this week, there weren't too many big games. The Cardinals versus the Seahawks, I think, is a big game in terms of the division. Seahawks, I think, are 3-6. Rams are, I think, 6-3. Niners, I think, are 5-4. And then obviously the Cardinals are 6-2 or 7-2 or whatever they're at right now. So it's a really close division, and I think the Hawks need this win to keep it relatively close for a playoff spot. I think the Cardinals need to win because they want to really grab a hold of that division, with the Rams taking a loss last week. So it's a big game for the division. It's a big game for playoff contention. And the other big game, I think everybody in the AFC North, that division right now is so jumbled in terms of positioning, and they're all playing beatable teams. I think other than Pittsburgh Steelers playing the Chargers. I think the Ravens are playing the Bears, Lions versus the Browns, and then the Raiders and the Bengals. So they're playing beatable teams, and so they need to capitalize on their schedule. So again, Cards and Hawks is a big game, and then everybody in the AFC North is a big game. But yeah, that's it for NFL. Let's move into Major League Baseball. And I want to talk about a couple of the award winners that we've had recently, as well as the biggest so far off-season signing, I think, has been Justin Verlander. Verlander re-signed with the Houston Astros for a one-year, $21 million deal. This is a big deal for someone who's coming off arm surgery, hasn't pitched in a very long time. I understand why they did. They're paying for past performance, and they're paying for what he can be again. And I think they're overcompensating because they feel that they might lose Correa. And I can see it. I can see Correa going to another team, and I can see Houston kind of panicking. But the Verlander signing, I think, is good for Verlander. He's getting his money. It's a one-year deal to prove himself. I honestly thought he would take a Yankee deal, but they didn't. They only offered him, I think, 18. And I'm all about getting your money. The dude, I believe, has 2 rings, 2 World Series. I think he's solid. So signing for money doesn't bother me at all. Houston is a good squad. They proved it last year without the cheating scandal. They're still up there. They still got guys. They still have amazing talent as an organization. So I can see why he signed there if he wants to win another World Series. But that's really been the only big signing so far. Recently, we've had the awards drop, and the couple that I want to talk about are obviously Shohei Ohtani, a unanimous American League MVP award. Unanimous was huge. I expected him to win. I didn't expect it to be unanimous. I do think it's the right decision, and I know there's people that are upset with it because he was on a losing team. He was on a team that was lost 100 games. My thought is, where would they have been without Ohtani? And honestly, they could have been, 20 and 142 or 141, whatever, 162 games, so 142. So I'm not against that. We've given it to Trout when the Angels haven't been good. I don't think the MVP, and I've said this before, and I think about this with basketball and football, the MVP doesn't necessarily have to be from a winning team. It's literally the most valuable player, and the most valuable player to their team, I believe, was Shohei Ohtani in terms of pitching and hitting, as well as most valuable to the league. Ohtani brought a whole new demographic this year to Major League Baseball, a new spotlight, and was so big and was so well recepted in the league and by the fans this year. It was great to see for the game of baseball. So I don't have a problem with him winning. I at that point, I don't know who else you would have gone with. Maybe Vlad Guerrero Jr. I think that would have been a pick. But again, he wasn't in the playoffs. So what's the difference between missing it by a couple games and missing it by a lot of games, right? We're going by valuable. So Shohei, congratulations, unanimous MVP. That's huge. The NL MVP, the final 3 were all guys who were on teams that didn't make the playoffs. Juan Soto, Bryce Harper, and Fernando Tatis Jr. It was given to Bryce Harper, and I can understand why. He carried the Phillies near the end of the season, offensively as well with their pitching rotation to make a playoff run. They didn't. I could have seen Fernando Tatis Jr., but he was injured during the year, so I think that kind of held him back. Juan Soto, again, team didn't make the playoffs, but he played well. All the metrics that they use, the AXE, is kind of all the metrics in one. Bryce Harper was deserving of this, but not by a lot. But he didn't win by a lot, so congratulations, Bryce Harper. Now, the one I do take issue with was Manager of the Year for the American League. It was given to Kevin Cash of the Tampa Bay Rays. And I don't understand why. Yes, they had the best record of Major League Baseball, but at the same time, this was, I'm not going to say was expected, but they were expected to be a good team. They were expected to be a contending team in baseball. And so they lost Blake Snell. So what, right? Like, they're still a good team. They still have other guys, and they played well. I personally think it was also between Dusty Baker of the Astros. Again, a team that I expected to do well and did. The guy who it should have gone to, in my opinion, was Scott Service of the Seattle Mariners. And that's not because I live in Washington. I don't care for the Mariners. I'm not a Mariners hardcore supporter. Yeah, I go to games because it's baseball, and baseball's fun to watch in person, and it is the closest team to me. But the Mariners weren't expected to be in contention this year. They were supposed to be a 500 or below team, or just barely above. They made a run at not only the division, but they made a run at wild card, and they did it without a true number one starter in a pitching rotation. I don't think Marco is. I've said it on previous broadcasts. I've said it on previous podcasts. I don't think Marco's that guy. I don't think he's a number one dude. They did it with injuries. They fought through everything, and they were there till the very last series of the season. And this team was fun to watch, and it will be fun to watch for a very long time. Ty France, I want to say, I know Crawford, J.P. Crawford. I wanted to say Jason Crawford. I don't know if it's J stands for Jason. J.P. Crawford, Ty France. Seager is gone, and it seems that there's issues in the organization with him and management. So hopefully that comes to light, and we really see what goes on there. Mitch Haniger, who I believe you needed to trade because I feel his value will never be higher, and I feel you could get decent pieces for him. But he played well for the team. Kelnick came on at the end of the year, really started progressing really well. They have the top minor league system with Noviel Marte and Julio Rodriguez and a bunch of other guys, Kirby Hancock in the pitching. And they brought up Logan Gilbert this year, who I think in a year or two could be that number one guy that they need if he progresses the way he should. But I do think Scott Service was robbed of AL Manager of the Year. That's where this was going, right? I just got on a Mariners tangent. I think Scott Service deserved AL Manager of the Year for what he did for this team. And I've been a Service doubter for a very long time. I don't think he's that guy to get the Mariners over that hump or to a World Series. He can get them to a playoff because the talent will be there. I just don't know if he's that guy that's going to lead him to a World Series. He's not a Dusty Baker. He's not a Tony La Russa. And as much as I hate Dave Roberts, he's not a Dave Roberts, right? But I do feel he was robbed of the AL Manager of the Year, and that's all I'm going to say about that. So from MLB to MLS, season has ended. Playoffs are set, and I do have a feeling that this will be a good playoff season for the MLS, because I do believe that the teams that have made it are very talented teams, very strong teams, not necessarily with the best players, but in the game of soccer, one person will not win you a game unless you're Manchester United being carried by Cristiano Ronaldo. But in the East, we have the Philadelphia Union versus the New York Red Bulls. That's the 2 versus 7 matchup. The 3 versus 6 is Nashville versus Orlando City. And then 4-5 is NYCFC versus Atlanta. The bye goes to the New England Revolution, who had the league's best record. So I'm going to say Philly, move on. I think Nashville, move on, because I think they have the best defense in the league, and I don't think Orlando will be able to do what they need to do. Now, this is a one-and-done playoff. They changed that a couple years ago to knockout stage, just straight knockout instead of the legs and aggregate scoring. So And then I think Atlanta pulls the 4-5 upset, being the 5th seed. I don't think it's much of an upset, but Josef Martinez, I believe, will be that guy in that game, and he'll show up big. On the West, I think the Sounders are playing Real Salt Lake. That's the 2-7 matchup. Sporting Kansas City, Vancouver is the 3-6, and the 4-5 is Portland versus Minnesota. I believe Portland will beat Minnesota. 4 will move on. Kansas City will beat Vancouver and move on. And the Sounders will beat Real Salt Lake and move on. And Colorado has the bye. So in the next round now, we will have the New England Revolution versus Atlanta and Philly versus Nashville. I believe Nashville, again, best defense, will shut down the Philadelphia Union. And I believe the New England Revolution will breeze by Atlanta FC. On the West, Colorado will play Portland. Colorado will win. Portland has been playing very well, but Colorado is the 1 seed for a reason. And then I think the Sounders will beat Sporting Kansas City, a team that they have had a little bit of problem with this year, but it is playoffs. It is a different beast, and the Sounders are built for the playoffs. They always have been. They've been a model of consistency for playoffs ever since coming into this league. So then our semifinals now is the New England Revolution versus Nashville, and Colorado versus the Sounders. So I believe New England will beat Nashville. I think they're too strong despite Nashville's defense. New England will move on. They have the number one. They're the number one team for a reason. And then Colorado will lose out to the Sounders. Now that is the homer in me right there because I am a Sounders season ticket holder. But I also believe that the talent that they have with Raul Ruidiaz and Will Bruin, Freddie Montero, Stephen Fry in net, as well as a very solid defense, and João Paulo in the midfield, I do think they are the better team. I think they hit a rough patch late in the season, and that's why they got that 2 seed. But I do think they win, bringing the New England Revolutions versus the Seattle Sounders for the MLS title. Now, very rarely will your number one team of the year, the team that has the best record, rarely in MLS, not rarely, sometimes, they don't always win the title. And with that said, I think the Sounders win the title. They won it in 2016, they won it in 2019, and they will win it in 2021. I'm calling it now. So, but again, the first round comes up soon. It's MLS. It's not European soccer. It is fun to watch, especially live. I'm not gonna do a whole spiel on it, but tune in, check it out. Don't expect the standard of a Premier League or La Liga or Bundesliga if you're watching the MLS because it's not there. But it is fun. There's not too much going on in the NHL right now, but I did want to touch on some points that I am seeing. Number one, the Anaheim Ducks are tied for first in the West with the Calgary Flames. Now, I know it's early in the season, but this Ducks team was supposed to be a bottom-of-the-barrel team, and there's still plenty of time for them to fall off. But I am thoroughly surprised. They got a young team, they got a talented team, and they have Stolarz and Gibson in net, and I think those two guys have played really well. On the East, Pittsburgh and the New England Islanders, or the New York Islanders, are the bottom 4 of the league in terms of the West, or bottom 4 of the conference. And that's very surprising because both these teams were playoff teams last year. But again, it is early. There's plenty of time for them to rise. And then my team, the VGK, the Vegas Golden Knights, are kind of middle in the pack in the West right now, but they are injury-ridden. They are plagued injury right now, whether it's COVID-19 protocol or legitimate injuries. This team, I think, has gone maybe 2 games this season where they haven't had an injury in game. So it's been an exciting season, but I think the injuries will test the guys. It will test our depth, and I think later on in the season, these guys will have that game experience to go forward come playoff time. So that's just a quick iffy on or quick quickie on the NHL. And I want to end tonight with F1. I am a big F1 guy, and this week's race is in Qatar, however you pronounce it. I don't know the proper pronunciation. I always thought it was Qatar. But this is the first F1 race on this track. Now, it's the low sail track. It was built in 2004, and it's been mainly used for MotoGP, motorcycles, or GP2, things of that nature. This is the first F1 race that they will have on this track. So I can't go in with a certainty saying this is a Red Bull track, this is a Mercedes track, this is a Ferrari track. I don't know off the top of my head. Looking at the track itself, I think it bodes well for Red Bull and Ferrari and McLaren. Mercedes has fantastic straight line speed. They tend to slow when they have to hit chicanes, turns, things of that nature. But Low Sail is a 3.34 mile track. That's how long it is around. This is the first F1 race there. The fastest lap recorded, obviously this is just recorded by any race there, was a 1 minute 38 seconds, 0.699. There's a few F1 drivers that have experience on this track from GP2. One of those guys is the Red Bull driver, Checo Perez. Now, I think this can be huge for Red Bull because he knows the track, and it's been a while, but I do think that will hold some sort of advantage. What that is, I don't know. I believe this race will end Max, Lewis, and then third, I'm going to go for a surprise here and say Charles Leclerc from Ferrari. I think he's been driving really well lately. He's had some tough fights with McLaren. I think this track bodes well for him. And what I mean is, if we bring it up, this is the Low Sail track. If you look at turn 16, which if you're looking at the screen is going to be near your bottom right, 2-turn run to your bottom left, that is straight line speed. That's where Mercedes will have to make any moves that they plan on making, going in and coming out of those turns, because their straight line speed is so devastating. Now, that straight line is almost a mile long. This is where, like I said, Lewis Hamilton and Valtteri Bottas will have to make their moves. The rest of the track is very short straight lines, curves, and that bodes well for teams that have very good downforce, very good aerodynamics. It tends to turn better. I think Mercedes has top tier straight line speed and kind of average middle of the pack aerodynamics and turning downforce. Red Bull, I think, is a good mix of both, and that's why I've said Max, I think, will get first. I don't know where Checo will land, being that he has raced this track before. I could see him hitting the podium, but I threw in Charles Leclerc in there because I do think the Ferrari and the McLaren and the AlphaTauris are actually built for a track like this, where there's a lot of turns with minimal straightaways. And I'm excited to watch this race on this track. This will be normal, earlier than normal because it is in Qatar. I think it's going to be like a 6 a.m. race on Sunday. But I am off so I can get up, watch it, take a nap, and all that stuff. But again, watch for Mercedes from turn 16 to turn 1. And then look at turn 1 to turn 3, and then the big turn 12 to turn 14, where I think Red Bull and all the other guys can make space on Mercedes. And I think this race will be fun to watch. Again, it's a brand new track. I'm super excited. It's the first race for Formula One in Qatar. I'm thrilled to see what happens with this race, and hopefully it's all good and it's all, not a lot of accidents, because I don't want the Drivers' Championship or the Constructors' Championship to end on something like a DNF or something of that nature. And speaking of things of that nature. Last week was the Sao Paulo GP, formerly the Brazilian GP, and it was a fantastic race, and it wasn't without controversy at all. So let's go through the podium. It was Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen, Valtteri Bottas. I picked Verstappen, Hamilton, Checo. So 2 of the 3 I got right, swapped the 2. But Checo did take the fastest lap and still a point, and we will get into that a little bit later. I want to talk about Lewis Hamilton. Now, since I've been watching Formula One, I would probably say early 2000s, 4-ish. Hamilton came in, I think, 07, 08, and he was really good, and he's been one of my favorite drivers for a very, very long time. And I'm not one of these guys where it's like, oh yeah, just Lewis Hamilton or just Max Verstappen or just Fernando Alonso. I love good driving. So I am a big fan of Lewis Hamilton. I'm an even bigger fan of Max Verstappen right now. You know what I mean? Like, I think Lewis's time is coming to an end, and it's kind of like that old guard changing place. So while I do love Lewis Hamilton, and I do believe he is the GOAT of F1 with 101 victories, 7 world titles, going for his 8th. I do like Max right now a little bit more in that Red Bull car, because I do think that car isn't as powerful as a Mercedes, and we saw that this past week. And so he's doing more with a lesser car, slightly lesser car, not a lot. Like, it's not like he's in an Aston Martin or an AlphaTauri, right? He's in a good car. So yeah, moving on. Lewis, going into the race, was already going to take a 5-grid penalty spot because he put in a new engine. What that means is that if he would have gotten first place in qualifying, he would start the race in 5th. So in qualifying, the practice runs, he had pole position for the sprint race, and this was one of 3 sprint races this year. This was the 3rd. What that means is you were going to qualify, and then however you qualify is how you start the sprint. And then whoever wins the sprint gets pole for the actual race. And then 1, 2, 3 get points of 3, 2, 1 to add to their titles, their title races, right? So in qualifying, Lewis was deemed to have an illegal DRS wing. What that means is the opening of the wing that allows you more speed in the DRS zones was deemed illegal. It's supposed to be, I think, 45 or an 85 centimeter or millimeter spacing, and it wasn't. It was more than that, meaning more airflow can get through, meaning he was going faster. So it was deemed an illegal wing. So he came in first in qualifying, so he would have been pole position for the sprint, but because he was deemed illegal, he got knocked down to 20th. Now, a lot of people think this was fair, but some people think it was unfair in that he should have been disqualified from the sprint and disqualified from the race, meaning he would have started 20th in the race no matter what. But that's not the way the stewards decided it. They decided he's going to start 20 on the sprint, and during the sprint, he moved all the way up to P5. So he gained 15 spots during the sprint, which great racing, but he wasn't really challenged. A lot of guys kind of moved out of the way for him, especially those with Mercedes engines. If you're not familiar, Mercedes does provide engines for other teams, and there's a little bit of a conflict of interest I can see. But a lot of them moved out of the way. They didn't really challenge Lewis as he was coming through. Well, Valtteri Bottas won the sprint. So it was Bottas, Verstappen, and Carlos Sainz Jr. grabbing 3, 2, 1 points. And Valtteri and Max were 1 and 2 on the grid. Hamilton winning or getting up to 5th place in the sprint moved him only back to P10 for the original race, for the real race, the Sao Paulo GP. What this means is he has a brand new engine. He's in the 10th spot. And I thought there would be a little more fight with 2 Ferraris, 2 McLarens, an AlphaTauri in front and behind. I thought there would be more pushback. against Hamilton, and there really wasn't, proving he's just a really good driver. He's the greatest driver I believe we've seen in a very long time. But he fought through 10 spots, won the race outright. It was an amazing run and probably one of the best races this year and of recent years. But it was impressive to see Lewis do that. So Lewis won, got max points other than fastest lap, which Checo stole in the final lap of the race. Verstappen got second. So as of right now, the standings for the drivers are Max Verstappen has 332.5 points. Lewis Hamilton has 318.5. He leads by 14. Mercedes is at 521.5, and Red Bull Racing is at 510.5. They're 14 and 11 back respectively, but that can change going into tomorrow. Again, this is Thursday. It's pre-recorded. But what I mean by that is in the Sao Paulo GP, in lap 48, Lewis was trying to pass Verstappen to go into first place, and Verstappen didn't really try to turn his car going into the turn, and both him and Lewis went off track and got back on. Luckily, they didn't touch. Nothing happened. No one was injured. And then in lap 59, Lewis passed and took first place and never gave it up. Now, the stewards during the race decided that there was nothing to investigate. It was all good, just hard racing. And that seems to be the initial thought of a lot of the racers, the drivers. It was hard racing. I mean, Max Verstappen came out and said, look, man, we're not playing in kindergarten. We're trying to win a championship. It was hard racing. Lewis Hamilton has come out, and although I think reluctantly said it was hard racing, it was good defense. This is what we want to see. This is how we want to fight, essentially. And then you got some drivers like Charles Leclerc, who's like, well, if that's not a penalty, I'm going to have to change how I drive. New evidence has come to light, and it's the in-cockpit view of Verstappen, and it doesn't look like he made a legitimate effort to really turn until Max was off of the line, and then he turned. There's a slight hesitancy. So Mercedes, under an article, a rule, they want, because of this new evidence, because the stewards apparently didn't have this view. I don't know if it's due to technical difficulty or what. Mercedes wanted a hearing for possible penalty. Stewards looked at it today, had representatives of Mercedes and Red Bull both there. They will make their decision Friday morning. Now, what this means is that if Max gets penalized, it would be a 5-second penalty, essentially, a 5-second penalty. And you're looking at Lewis, who was 10 seconds ahead, no problem. But Valtteri Bottas was only 3 and some change behind Verstappen. Meaning if there's a 5-second penalty added on, Verstappen drops to third, Bottas goes to second. Meaning you're looking at the race being 329 essentially, and him only up 11 points, and then Mercedes gaining some points. It's a 6-point swing for the Constructors' Championship. This is huge. Now, I hope the stewards see it as it just tough racing, because I believe it really was just tough racing. I enjoyed the race. No one got hurt. It got pushed off. I know Lewis was probably pissed, but he got the lead a few laps later, took it and never gave it back and won the race. I would, if I was the stewards, I would err on the side of caution here, and I would look to the racers, and the majority of them are saying it was just hard racing. They're fighting for a championship. This is what we want. This is what makes our sport exciting. This is what's going to draw viewers. This is what's going to draw crowds. This is what's going to draw attention to this sport, especially if no one was injured. So I think the stewards bypass this, say they found nothing wrong with what Verstappen did. He made an effort to defend his line. He braked late. I get it. But I think if Mercedes goes down this road of challenging things and the stewards avoid that, we could see essentially a huge backlash, and other teams going, well, then I want this reviewed, and I want this reviewed. I want Silverstone, the England race, reviewed. I want Monza reviewed. I want the other Italian races reviewed where Hamilton caused Verstappen to crash. Like, you're opening up Pandora's box here with this rule. And so I think the stewards stick to their original rule. I don't think they penalize Verstappen. And in doing so, I think they close the door a little bit on that review rule, unless it's massive. Like, if there was an accident, if Verstappen would have caused an accident, right, and there was no penalty given because they didn't investigate it, then Mercedes came up and said, no, you need to look at this tape. And then they viewed it, and they was like, well, yeah, he did cause reckless endangerment, and he did cause someone to get, hurt or injured or whatever. Then yes, penalty, I think, would be necessary. But for me, it was hard racing. It was push racing. I think it was fun. I watched the race live. I watched the replay. I didn't see anything wrong with it. Verstappen came in second. Lewis won in the end. I think it turned out the best way it could have, especially with Mercedes and that new engine. But again, that's just me. And I know a few of the drivers are really pushing that it's just hard racing. And then you got guys who are upset about it. But the majority of the drivers seem to agree with Verstappen and Lewis that it's just hard racing. And this is what that sport needs. They don't need a black eye on this, where if they do deem it a penalty, right, and they take that lead, they take points away from Verstappen, and Lewis goes on to win the title, it's going to be an asterisk title. You know what I mean? It's going to be. Let them fight it out to the finish. Don't get involved unless it's absolutely necessary. And let's finish this F1 season clean. Let's finish it with no black eyes. Let's just go out and let these dudes race. Because this is exciting. Other than that, man, that's it for this week. We've got 42 minutes. Not bad, right? So, again, it's been fun, this pre-record. You can hear it raining. I'm going to play hockey. I love you guys. This is Sporta, and I am your host, David. Follow me. Hit those links right there. Check out my stuff. Like, subscribe, comment, rate, review. I will download the audio. This will be on Podbean, Amazon Music, Spotify, Pandora, and other avenues where you get your podcast. Again, I'm working on getting live. It's been so busy and so hectic. Until next time, guys, I love you guys. Stay safe, stay healthy, and as always, be excellent to each other.